Now, on this channel before, we have talked a lot about fishing. But of course, what we've really been talking about is more the fishing industry. That's the big boats, small boats, medium boats going out onto sea, catching fish, bringing back their catch and selling them. However, this article today, coming to us from the Angling Times, yes, the Angling Times is a real thing. It is a very real magazine, has existed for quite a long time, and brings you, shall we say, all the best angling news. But of course, it's not looking at the big fishing industry. This, however, looks more at angling and, shall we say, fishing as a hobby. And anglers, as they are, as they like to be called, are those, the one size, one size fits all fishermen sitting on the bank of a river or a pond or etc. with a little rod out, just sitting there catching fish for their little hobbies. Now, you might not think that Brexit has had maybe a massive impact on these people, but actually it might very well have had a big impact on them. So just as there has been a massive impact, of course, on the British fishing industry, this has had a knock-on onto the, shall we say, the non-business side, the little anglers. And of course, obviously, you've got the whole industry that feeds onto them, like local fish shops, bait shops, and tackle tackle shops as well. Those have been heavily affected as well in some different and somewhat strange and surprising ways. But nevertheless of all, like I say, sit back, get out your rod and start casting, because we're going to go diving into the Angling Times. So, but before we do that, Christ, this cough, I've got to shift this. Oh, yeah. So, before we do that, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And as always, there are links down below to my one-off donation links called Buy Me Coffee, and of course Patreon as well. Should you like to support the channel that way? And of course, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel that way. So, as always, on with this. This comes from the Angling Times with the title of "What Impact Has Brexit Had on UK Angling?" While anglers were as divided as the UK population over the 2016 Brexit vote, the wider impacts on that decision are now still taking shape. And the changes have been seismic, with the promise of greater freedom heavily countered by the new world of restrictions and uncertainty. No part of the angling industry has remained unaffected by Brexit, said Angling Times tackle editor Mark Sawyer. The dream of Brexit sadly hasn't been a reality for the angling trade, and while there are other issues such as the pandemic and shipping costs, Brexit has been an exacerbating factor. British companies have found a new minefield for new rules and challenges. Ironic, perhaps, when one of the key arguments for Brexit was the reduction in bureaucracy and red tape. What was legal yesterday isn't today, said one industry insider. With Britain with Britain outside the EU single market, the rules have completely changed. We forget all too easily that we are a small part of a huge international picture, and Europe is still our biggest trade partner. And I want to just back off a second and praise, by the way, the guy who wrote this piece, because he is getting so much right, which you do not even see in main like big national newspapers. And remember, this is the Angling Times saying this, a small magazine that is probably not widely read by 1,000 people, but you can still get it in your newsagents. Yeah, bravo to the writer on this article. Bravo. Of course, Brexit is not the only factor in today's cocktail of disruption. Energy prices and, of course, the spiraling cost of transporting goods from the Far East have all contributed to an uncertain market and rising tackle prices. But those in the bait and tackle world spoke of the huge extra complications now posed by Brexit, and the cost will continue to rise as a direct result. The bait industry is a prime example of how Brexit is affecting companies and punters alike. We've worked hard to get things back on track, but Brexit has been a massive hurdle, said Dynamite Bait's Darren Holds. While he said the company has, quote, solved most of the issues with mainland Europe, he added that Brexit had pushed costs up, partly due to the increased legal and logistical challenges. Some 30 to 40 pages of documents have to be stamped and then approved with every current EU delivery, he remarked. Companies are now obliged to hire veterinary experts to meet the minimal animal feed regulations, and Darrell admits that while the bait makers are trying and mitigate these extra costs, consumers can expect inevitable price rises. For the traveling angler, new bait rules are another huge headache. Ireland is just one example of many issues, such as the current ban on live baits, and any kind was still unresolved. And of course, the French carp fishing holidays, oh so popular with Brits, are a further major challenge. Currently, many of the restrictions faced by bait companies also apply to individual anglers, meaning that visitors must either conceal their brollies, pellets, and particles, I think that's how you say it, or buy abroad if they are to try and avoid fines and confiscations. One hoped for win in the Brexit era has been for, of course, smaller independent businesses, traditional tackle shops for anglers who prefer to keep it local. With the costs of living crisis and changing markets, however, this picture is mixed, to put it mildly. And once again, I want to praise the author of this article, because he is putting so much right, which we have been saying for so long about Brexit. I have a feeling that this guy might very well be a Remainer. I don't know, but it'd be interesting to find out. Paul Morgan, who runs Britain's biggest independent angling bookshop, Codger Boy, feels angry and let down, saying that Brexit has been disastrous for my mail order business, he told us. Severe custom duties and VAT on parcels to Europe has destroyed confidence. 20% of my business was selling fishing books to Northern Europe. That has virtually gone. While thanks to mass bureaucracy, I'm now unable to trade at European events that I've enjoyed for over 30 years. And we've said this before. What happens if you lose, as this guy just said? He's lost 20% of his business. That is a huge, and probably, I mean, that's a huge amount of money he's lost if he's lost like 20% of his business. So as for, of course, the boost in British-made products, the number of companies making bed chairs, luggage, and specialist rods remains a very tiny sector of the post-Brexit market. With UK labour costs and the vast majority of materials being imported, the made in Britain boom isn't happening anytime soon, warned Mark Sawyer. And with the carbon prices also increasing, we're just hoping this isn't a perfect storm. And while you can't say for sure how much of this is Brexit, it feels like we're at the wrong end of things right now. So, the pros and cons of Brexit in brief: travel restrictions. With new restrictions governing EU travel, Brits are finding it harder to fish around Europe. Other issues might include high travel insurance costs, along with bait bans and the risk of fines and confiscation. More domestic holidays are also likely to mean busier rivers and beauty spots becoming a regular feature. Of course, that is a positive for UK fisheries tourism. Of course, along with COVID, Brexit has played its part in pushing up costs, but this could prove a factor of a silver lining for British tourism. This is the expectation of many UK fisheries. Some of these offshoring, off-site accommodations are already booked up well into 2023. So while other factors such as shipping costs loom large, the Brexit-based restrictions have further increased bait and tackle prices. The biggest impact will be felt on higher density items such as chairs and luggage, but we can also expect to see wallets hit at a more affordable end of the market for sub at least £100 rods and reels. Of course, immigration and fish theft. Brexit has obviously reduced immigration from the EU, meaning that fewer people failing to comply with UK catch and release rules. But even before the vote leave, compliance had improved among Poles, Romanians, and other nationalities of settled status. And of course, clubs and tackle shops also benefit from migrants' money. So, water quality environmental standards. Again, amid the warnings of environmental weaker standards, Michael Gove said that Brexit would make the rivers and countryside a greener, cleaner, and better place, and adding to new freedoms could give the environmental voice the power to be held account. Last year's sewage debacle, along with the ongoing problems with pollution, abstraction, and woefully inadequate protection of our waterways, suggests that such rhetoric has aged badly, especially now the plug has been pulled on various EU projects to improve Britain's freshwater ecosystems. So overall, as you can see there, this is actually having a surprising effect on this industry. And remember, these are very much hobbyists when we're talking about this, of course. So overall, it's not looking good for fishing, both in, shall we say, the big commercial exploits to right down to your, guy at the side of the riverbank having to now face increased cost for paying for his baits, rods, and deck chairs and all the other paraphernalia that he may have to buy for his usual fishing needs. But again, I want to praise the guy who wrote this article. I don't know if we can find his name. No, it doesn't even say his name. It just says by the Angling Times. Oh, that's depressing. But yeah, good on the Angling Times for, I think, writing an absolute cracking article on the impacts of Brexit on their shall we say, their fishers. Overall, there isn't really a positive. I mean, you get the example of, oh, well, British tourism is going up. But with the cost of living crisis, I think very quickly kicking in, it's how long are people going to be able to afford to go away? Not not off, I'll nip up to the lakes, or I'll nip down to Cornwall or whatever. All of a sudden, that does prove a problem. And don't forget, increased tourism in these areas will prove a very big environmental challenge as well. So there is always a knock-on effect. Don't just take it as a solid positive away from that. But yeah, once again, another industry suffering the effects of Brexit. And as we said there, yet another business basically saying, I've lost X amount of my business. It is really, really shocking when it gets to this type of stuff. But this is what you see all the time with these types. Whenever we get a business, we've lost 30, 40, 20%, the guy said in this article. But yeah, that's a load of money that business is missing out on. And that could be, he might have to fire an employee. Again, if he's a small business owner, he might maybe only employ like 3 or 4 people. But that extra 20% might now mean that he might have to fire. Maybe he gets rid of his part-time staff. Maybe he has to fire a full-timer. You don't really know. But that is a lot of money. But as always, let me just cough my way out of the video. As always, thank you very much for coming along, watching, and tuning in. Like I say, like, comment, and share down below. And of course, there are links to my Patreon page and one affiliation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.